Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning North Committee. Oh, sorry. Welcome to the Planning North Committee meeting. Quite a few speakers today, so we have an allotted time as a member of the public 2 minutes, and the parish council have 5 minutes. You will be held to time, and that committee officer will be recording the time. A few quick bits of fire exits are, you can see, if the alarm does go off, there's no test tonight, so we'll make our way down to the bandstand. Please make sure your phones are silent or off. And members, please remember to turn on and off your mics. Just demonstrating how not to do that. The officers, please introduce themselves.
Good evening, Jason Hawkes, Principal Planning Officer.
Emma Parker, Head of Development and Building Control. Good evening, Claire Brown, Principal Planning Solicitor. Good evening, Carl Bailey, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. Apologies of absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Frank, Councillor Kitchen, Councillor Mercer, and Councillor Milne.
Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Hopefully everybody's having an opportunity to read them. Does anybody have any comment on the minutes? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. As members will recollect, I was unfortunately absent from the previous meeting due to illness. However, it has subsequently come to my attention that there is a factual inaccuracy in the minutes. So on page 3 of the draft of the minutes, at paragraph 5, under the heading field places they like to explain Royal Chief, BC 24/3220. So that's the second of the 2 field place matters that were under consideration. The minutes state Horsham Parish Council and Broadchief Parish Council supported the application. This is not the case. Broadchief Parish Council objected to the application. If the minutes could be amended to reflect this, and as that particular item was deferred to be reconsidered to the further committee, the officer's reports updated to reflect the nature of that objection. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Yes, we'll make that amendment, and I will sign that. When I sign them, I will second it. Okay. Do you want to propose that?
Yes, so I propose that the minutes be amended to reflect that change as described. Would you like me to reiterate the change, or officers come? Well, thank you. So, so proposed, Chairman.
Thank you, and I'll second it. Everybody agree on that? Thank you very much. Declarations of members' interest on either of our matters. No. I don't have any announcements. So we will appeal. Right? Anybody want to bring anything else down to the appeal? No, noted. So. DC 23-1325 Linefield Farm, Guildhouse Farm, Broadwater Lane, Coxdale. You have the presentation.
Thank you. Council should note there's an error on page 20, paragraph 1.6, which refers to a new pond. As amended, the pond has been removed from the proposal due to its proximity to the flood zone to the south. Since the committee report was published, Nuthurst Parish Council have also made the following additional comments. The access issue remains a high risk for all road users and has not been addressed in the application. The site and proposed plan are not feasible. There is considerable over-intensification of the site and intrusion into the countryside, and the access for emergency services remains high risk, which has not been addressed in the application. The applicant has also made the following additional comments in response, which I've summarised. In relation to the access road being high risk, the applicant has stated there has never been a recorded accident, minor or major, or fatal at the junction of Broadwater Lane and the private access to Lane Kill Park, which is a tract of shared ownership with free access rights to the owners of the plots as set out in the leases and covenants. In relation to comments of the site and the proposed plans are not feasible, the applicant has stated that the proposed scheme has been inspected and after modifications, no objections have been raised from consultees, with the exception of the drainage offset, which has been addressed through further details. For the concerns of the site and the proposed plans are not feasible, the applicant has stated that the proposed scheme has been inspected and after modifications, no objections to be raised. So that one. For access to emergency services, since the comment was first made, the applicants have liaised with West Sussex Fire and Rescue and commented that they have employed an independent specialist and fully qualified fire engineer to examine the scheme in detail. Subsequent drawings illustrate access with required turning circuits and reversing areas as required by law. So I'm just going to that. So in terms of over intensification, the applicant has stated Linefield Farm covers an area of 4.17 hectares in total. The development site, however, covers less than 1 hectare. And the stable block machinery stored on its sounds will only amount to approximately 1,400 square meters. That's less than 15% of the development sites. So you see the location plan of the site highlighted in red. The site relates to the lower of 2 fields and Linefield Farm. The site is in a countryside location located to the west of Nuthurst. There's a public right of way which is adjacent to the northern boundary of the site, and there is a screen along the southern boundary next to ancient woodland. The site is part of an area known as Guildhouse Farm, which has been divided into individual plots. This area is subject to an askable direction, which limits permitted development, as outlined in the report. This shows an aerial view of the site. You can see the site relates to fields with no existing properties immediately adjacent to the site. Here we see the proposed layout. Scheme proposes constructing a stable block, storage barn, a sand school, a manure store, and a borehole with plant room. These are all located to the southern field. Yeah. Scheme also includes a car park with a turning area. The development will be used for a horse rehabilitation facility, as well as for alpaca breeding and grazing for alpacas, horses, and sheep. As shown in this plan, the previous application has already been granted for fencing, new gates, and access to the northern field, which are not part of this proposal. So here we see the southern field in more detail. You can see the structures in the line, starting from the top right-hand corner. We have the proposed barn, which is next to the proposed borehole, shows the northeast corner of the site with its own panel. Then you have the sand school and the stables. Then there's a car park area and the manure store to the other side of the car park. You can see that all the buildings are set away from the flood zone to the south. The plan shows a proposal with the proposed landscaping in place. As amended, no objections raised to the application in relation to its landscape and visual impact, with the buildings largely concealed from view within this site. This plans proposed drainage for the sites. This is in response to the drainage officer's comments and includes an underground water tank connecting the borehole to the building. This also shows where the proposed soakaway and drainage for the site will be. Here we see the elevations of the proposed barn. This is proposed with timber vertical cladding and a metal panel roof and will be 5.25 meters high with roof lights and solar panels. This is the layout for Sand School, which is 40 meters by 25 meters with standard fencing. So here we see the the length of the stable block, the new U-shaped structure, including 6 individual stable areas and associated areas. This shows the northwest elevation and layout now. Here are some of the other elevations of the stable block. The structure will also be constructed with timber cladding and includes a roof feature. Here we see the layout of the proposed new store and park roof and borehole. These are smaller structures located either side of the site. As outlined in the report, the development has been kept outside the flood zones and subject to a condition requiring a drainage strategy. The proposal is considered appropriate in terms of flood risk. The use is also considered acceptable in principle for this countryside location. In terms of the comments from the fire service, it is felt there is sufficient access for emergency vehicles and a condition is recommended requiring details showing these details to be submitted for approval. The scheme is also considered appropriate in relation to other material planning considerations such as visual impact, highways impact, ecology, and water neutrality and impact on residential community. Thank you.
As we had a member arrive slightly late, if I could ask my colleague just to reiterate the additional information you summarised at the beginning, then that member can participate in the debate. Thank you.
Okay, so start with saying there's an error on page 20, paragraph 1.6, which refers to a new pond. This as amended the pond is removed from proposal due to its proximity to the flood zone. Since the committee report was published, Nuttehurst Parish Council have also made the following additional comments. Number 1, the access issue remains a high risk for all road users and has not been addressed in the application. Number 2, the site and the proposed plans are not feasible. Number 3, there is a considerable over-intensification of the site and intrusion into the countryside. And number 4, the access for emergency services remains high risk, which has not been addressed in the application. The applicant has also made the following additional comments in response. These are summarised as follows. Number 1, in relation to the access road being high risk, the applicant has stated there has never been a recorded accident, minor, major, or fatal at the junction of Poor Water Lane and the private access to Lime King Farm, which is a tract of shared ownership with free access rights to the owners of the plots set out in leases and covenants. In relation to comments of the sites and the proposed plan are not feasible, the applicant has stated that the proposed scheme has been inspected and after modifications, no objections have been raised from consultees with the exception of the drainage officer, and this has been addressed through further details. For access for emergency services, since the comment was first made, the applicants have liaised with West Sussex Fire and Rescue and commented that they have employed an independent specialist and fully qualified engineer to examine the scheme in detail. Subsequent drawings illustrate access, the required turning circles, and reversing areas as required by law. Sorry. So in relation to over-intensification, the applicant is stated Lime Hill Farm covers an area of 4.71 hectares in total. The development site, however, covers less than 1 hectare. The stable block, machinery store barn, and sand school only amount to approximately 1,400 square meters. This is less than 15% of the development site. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm even with the timing. Okay, so speakers, first up, Nick Cowdery.
The council's agricultural consultants noted in 2022 that no evidence of any need for an additional equine rehab facility in our area had been provided. Nearly 2 years later, there is still no evidence. In fact, our area's existing rehab facilities offer a rather better experience than that envisaged in the application. Closer to the public highway, they do not require horse boxes and trailers to travel 1.5 kilometres down a winding, bumpy, unmade track with no passing places. On arrival, owners can expect to find water treadmills, vibration plates, and solariums, all absent from this application. Now, startup businesses are highly vulnerable. 60% collapse in the first 3 years. And this startup business, its impact on the rural economy limited to 1 full-time and 1 part-time worker, shows no evidence of demand and proposes facilities inferior to those offered by local competitors. If the application is approved and, as is most likely, the business fails to realise the applicant's ambitions. Fields used for farming, whose adjacent fields are showing increasing biodiversity, would then house a redundant development. The carbon cost of that development? Wasted. Repurposing it? Further carbon cost, with economic unsustainability leading to environmental unsustainability. Finally, this application would fundamentally change the character of its access track. This runs past many separately owned lots, previously agricultural land, on which a number of enforcement notices have already had to be issued. The development at the end of the 1.5 kilometre corridor, with its associated traffic, can be expected to increase pressure for uses along the corridor that would be to the further detriment of the existing rural area. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Simone Hopkins.
I strongly oppose this application. Paragraph 1.7 confirms changes have been made, yet it hasn't been referred back to consultation. Why? This breaches your own rules. The application now cites livery, which is very different from rehabilitation or alpaca breeding. What business is actually being considered here? If the applicant is unsure what is they're doing, how can it succeed? There's no justification for an equine business in this sensitive rural location. They provide no proof of track record or expertise, and its failure would leave significant build in the countryside, which is likely to perform as a stepping stone to accommodation, especially given the applicant lives about an hour away. Highways didn't fully consider the application and decided some 3/4 mile down a private unmade track with no passing spaces and numerous blind bends, a hazard when 2 vehicles meet. Moreover, this track is footpath 1716. Rights of waiting have overlooked the conflict of use arising between pedestrians and vehicles using the footpath. The surface of the footpath will be degraded. What provisions have the council made for its continued maintenance? The site falls within M1 Horsham District Landscape Character Assessment. The size and scale of operation in this location would be harmful to the quiet rural character of the area. Paragraph 6.17 confirms there will be visual landscape intrusion due to the introduction of buildings on a site that is currently undeveloped. The officer further acknowledges the screening would not sufficiently compensate against these harmful effects. The officer's report has understated the landscaping harm, which is considered inappropriate development, reference policy 26 of the adopted local plan and the NPPF. In summary, grounds for refusing landscape harm, highway safety, and justification for development in rural location. There are sound material planning considerations on each of these that have not been properly considered. I ask the committee to consider these as forming robust reasons for refusal of this application.
Thank you, Simone. Norman Bryant.
Good evening all. I was chair of Numbers Parish Council when this application came up for the second time. There was large attendance from local residents against this application, which the parish council objected to. My background is that I've ridden since I was 16. I've owned some 20 horses over the years, which we cared for in our yard. I've also had my own business selling equestrian properties for over 30 years, and this is why I feel qualified to speak. I firmly believe that this yard will not entice anyone to leave a quality horse in such a place where there are far more suitable options available. The position of the application is remote, is approached by a long track which is designated public park of quite narrow places. In the winter, it would surely not take the weight of an 18-ton fire appliance if one could leave it. There is a lack of water. The nearest hydrant is over 1,300 metres away. A borehole has been mentioned, but there's no qualification as to the amount of water that would extract from that, if any. A 16 two-hand horse consumes in excess of 50 litres of milk a day. 15 times equals 750 litres a day. Plus the applicants who want to get sheep and alpacas there, all to water. The applicant quotes using 6,000 litres a day to water the school. She doesn't need a borehole, but a reservoir for that. There is nowhere near enough grazing of the animals, The total area is approximately 11 acres, about a third will be taken up by buildings, leaving 6 acres for grazing, which in winter months will be very boggy. The present field is not in good order, therefore huge quantities of hay and other materials would be needed to be a substantial vehicle. Would this be fair for the 10 families that live on the Guild House Farm Estate? There's already a horse rehabilitation centre in Broadwater Lane without any horses there, another one with a mile in Rings Lane, and a very nice one in Silverpool. If permitted, it result in an inappropriate form of development, not essential to a cultural location, which does not protect, preserve, and enhance key features and characteristics of the landscape, character of the area, or result in substantial environmental improvement. Contrary to HGC policy 25, 26, and 29, it will be a scale that dominates the countryside, setting and appears an intrusive and urbanized feature within the landscape.
Thank you, Norman, that's 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
It's 2 minutes.
sorry about that.
Thank you. Peter Newell, please.
Hello, I'm Peter Neal, the husband of the applicant. I'm here to support her and tell the community I was disappointed by being by the hostile and unpleasant treatment we've received from a very small selection of the Nutcastle community. Being able to discover trespassing on the land, damage to fence, in one case, a cruel fatal subject of the land by that dog, which had never been on our land in the first place. Also, more recently, my wife was assaulted. Almost all the objections to the application have no foundation in planning law, nor do they stand up to close examination. We wanted to establish a modest livestock business carrying for elderly horses, those needing a peaceful, rural atmosphere as they can live in convalescence after illness and all the remainder of their lives, and somewhere quiet to graze or sheep to breed a few alpacas. My family have 7 horses between them, my wife only 4, who have all been considered in this application. These activities are agricultural or equine in nature. They have the support of local best practice and answer a need in West Sussex and Garden where many other reasonable sites have been earmarked by developers and housing. Something we will be able to resist upon, which should lead to the improvement of the local residents. Sadly, and this includes the Old Parish Council, there have been an unwarranted and totally incorrect accusation that we are motivated to build houses on the farm. Not only is this unfounded, but a small amount of research has also shown that there's been not in the wrong direction. There specifically represents such development. Instead of being critical and hostile, the residents should be welcoming. It is an entirely appropriate venture where tranquility and seclusion are vital, very much like the old Guildhouse farm might have ventured into if it had continued. We have worked tremendously hard to respond positively to all the planning requirements, but we should thank planning officer and college for their guidance and since we received the original positive pre-application advice. Larkhill Farm covers 4.71 hectares, and most of it remain for grazing. Only the lower field right in public view will be used for stables, a barn, and a sandstall. These will use less than 15% of that lower field, arguably the open intensification and intrusion into the countryside where scaremongers have been described. We have opportunity residents to discuss our proposals and work then and hope that we.
Thank you, Peter, that's 2 minutes. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kenny from the parish council. You have 5 minutes.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. You've been through most of the reasons for and against this so far, and these are I'd like to recap. Planning application DC 23-1323, this is the second application of development line of farm. First one, DC 22-1272 withdrawn. Planning application DC 22-0276, reserving the tract subdivision of the field was approved and this has been largely carried out. Planning application DC 22-1576 for a caravan site withdrawn. The second application now has a borehole together with a plant room. No mention has been made of maintenance or certification by a registered company. It is a legal requirement. Borehole must be maintained and certified every year that the water is suitable for consumption. The fire brigade has questioned access for an 18-ton fire engine. Turning into the farm from the outside track will be very difficult. They have said that they can get large vehicles in. The track down to the farm gate is about 10 feet wide. If you're coming in with a large vehicle and you've got time to brush the herbage and back and fill half a dozen times, you might squeeze through. A fire engine coming in a rush is not gonna make it. Like your farmers big business, there are no facilities for employees. There's a legal requirement for the company to provide the necessary facilities. The original planning application DC 221272 had a amenity block. Whilst there's been discussion regarding the supply of clean water and the borehole was proposed, there's not been any indication of the processing of wastewater for any reason. So you have the muck store where all the pickings are taken and he's mucking out from the stables, but all the liquid side of that, and then you still let that run into the stream. The barn is to house all the machinery as well as feed and other necessities. They'll have 2 deliveries per year for hay, while they need many more for their other requirements, bedding, hard feed, all sorts of stuff. The 15 to 20 vehicle visits per week will not include the farm's owners and staff, which would add another 25 to 30 vehicles per week, making the round trip. The over-intensification regards the number of animals. This is excessive. They have 4 to 6 sheep proposed, 6 alpacas, and 10 to 15 horses. Now, according to what they have, the front field, which is divided into 3, and there is a lower left-hand side field of about 3 acres, I think it shows, which is for grazing. There is to be 6 stables, 2 for owners' horses, 1 for isolation, 1 for emergency use, 1 for special care. All the other animals will be outside without shelter. It's supposed to use a system called track grazing, where there is an area which is annexed from posts or where there are available trees, and the animals can wander around and eat where they like. The area designated for this activity is 3 acres. Not clear whether this will be the area of the track or whether it's going to be a 3-acre field. There is an area of approximately 3 acres, as I said, on southwestern quarter of the farm. This could work if the area is small enough for the animals to walk around all year round. However, the area is real to play. In wet times, like this last winter, autumn, winter, and spring, it just turns into a very massive quagmire very, very quickly. If you have track grazing, as I've seen track grazing, the tracks 10 to 20 feet wide and have a hard surface so the animals can walk on it all year round. You cannot just have them on open field. A grazing of 3 acres, they'll chew that off to nothing. They have to live on the hay nets and they've got to be able to get around to eat them. All animals have a hierarchy. And if you've got a dominant animal, it will be gathered off the nets. So it's very difficult to ensure the animals are all getting fed properly. You can say, oh, they all should get X pounds of hay per day. But if they're being pushed off the nets, they won't. And it's very difficult to keep that up. The principal objection here is the fact that the welfare of the animals are not really being taken into account. I feel that this application should not be allowed because there is over intensification all the way around on this particular application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's our speakers. We'll give the officers an opportunity to answer or clarify any points from that.
Just quickly, Chair, before I pass to my colleague, there were a few comments made by the speaker, Mr. Newell, at the beginning of the speech. I'm sure members recognise they're not, they weren't material planning grounds, but just for the record, I'm sure you appreciate that they can't be considered as part of this assessment.
So the countryside protection policy 26 says outside those very boundaries, rural character and the undeveloped nature of the countryside will be protected against inappropriate development. And any proposal must be essential to its countryside location subject to criteria. So for this application, it's considered a horse rehabilitation facility which requires a required environment and the grazing of animals is considered appropriate in principle in the countryside location. The scheme does not include any on-site accommodation, and the applicant has made it clear that that's not required, so that's not part of the proposal in front of us. If they were to include a on-site accommodation, they would have to demonstrate a viability as part of that, to demonstrate that that's required for this. As it doesn't include the any accommodation, viability is not a consideration here. The parish's comments on the maintenance and management of the borehole, there is condition 11, which requires a private water supply, and that does include details to be submitted regarding the maintenance of the borehole. And also the drainage, there's a condition 3, which requires details of the drainage strategy to be submitted. Also point out that we've had comments in the previous application from Reading agricultural consultants who have not raised any concerns regarding the welfare of the animals.
Thank you. Right, members, something to contemplate here. Councillor Livingston.
Good evening. I've also kept horses for 35 years. No, I've never been. Okay. Limefield Farm sits in an area which was once Gilhouse Farm, as already been stated, which was an area mainly suitable for grazing. It's now been parceled up into individual lots. And what was the green oasis for the locals has changed a bit in recent times. There is a small housing estate using the same access to Broadwater Lane and multiple other enterprises, including for growing and equestrian usage. I have a number of concerns. First of all, one about potential residents. Although this application does not state a need for residents, previous application for this plot for a caravan has raised concerns locally. The applicant now intends to use CCTV for monitoring. I'm concerned this may not be sufficient to provide adequate assurance to the applicant and owners of the horses in food break, particularly when they are in fields and during adverse weather conditions. Also, owners, as I know, are very attached to their horses and will try to visit both morning and during early dark hours in the winter. The next point I'd like to raise is about the West Sussex County Council rights of way. Note there is no objection from the footpath 1716 being used as the access track. However, it does state that any alteration to the public right of way, they should be consulted. Have they actually been consulted about the alterations that have clearly taken place to this track? And have they confirmed it is suitable for an 18-ton fire? Are HDC officers confident that the plot will be accessible to tow horse trailers and horse box lobbies? For fire and emergency vehicle access, we don't have any evidence that that track is suitable for vehicle. I'm also a qualified fire engineer. There are very sharp corners in this track, which will be very hard to navigate for any vehicle other than a small motorised car or tractor. And can the officer please confirm that it satisfies the risk requirements as stated in the fire officer's comments? And can we have assurance that fire clients in winter travelling along a rugged farm track will be able to access Limefield Farm and continue to the buildings? Also, obviously, the water flow rates is required to be confirmed. I do realise that there are going to appoint an independent fire engineer, but we're making a decision possibly on something we don't have evidence currently. And I also note West Sussex County Council highways, they also require details of sufficient access widths as required by the fire officer. Now, the next highlight is about supporting documentation. The type risk assessment is contained in the information form. There are no details associated with it regarding the author and associated companies, consultants, and data that's produced on. Could the officers assure us that they have been made aware of these details and is it from an accredited organisation?
It's also noted that some of the details were recently updated and a HDC drainage response remains as continued to object. Reading agricultural consultants, they have not visited the site and have made their assessment on as a desktop exercise. They have raised concerns about the proposed number of horses and the proposed number of stables and potential staging requirements during adverse weather. Reading agricultural consultants also brings up the issue of identified need for rehabilitation facilities, which have not been evidenced. I think we need to have some evidence as to the need for this business. He also does recommend that the council seek further details of the proposed rehabilitation and repeat business. Has this been done? And can this be made available to this meeting or after the meeting? Again, the business plan itself, there's no information regarding who has offered it, date it was produced, and with the concerns raised by Reading agricultural consultants, this needs careful consideration. Now, from my point of view, with the lack of information we have regarding this application, my feeling at the current time is that we should consider deferring until we have that information confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone say anything about that?
In terms of the access, it is a shared access with all the rights of way, so that is a situation which often occurs, and so the county are well aware of that, including the rights of way officer and the highways officers. And they consider the use appropriate based on the amount of trips that have been put forward and the use of and the term. And in terms of the rights of way, there is a condition requiring details to be submitted, but we feel there's access is appropriate and can be met. And the applicant has said that he's been looking into that and sought the advice of their own consultant. So a condition will cover that detail. Regarding the concerns for potential on-site accommodation, we know there has been previous applications, but we have to look at the application in front of us, which does not include any accommodation. The applicant has been very, very clear on that, and that's outlined in the report that they made clear that they don't require it for the scheme. And if an application was to come forward at a later date, that would have to be assessed on its merits. And as I said, that is when we'd have to look at other things, including the viability of whether that's required to part of the application. So, as stated earlier, viability is not the consideration for this application, because the principle of the use is acceptable, subject to other criteria such as the landscape harm, the high-risk impacts, the impact on amenity and ecology. So all those matters have been addressed in the reports. So related to the drainage details, we have received further details as the plan I showed you earlier, and there is a condition requiring, standard condition requiring further details to be submitted prior to commencement to be agreed. So we feel that covers that matter. So the Reading agricultural consultants, they have raised a few queries, but generally they've not raised any objection to the scheme, and so we feel it's appropriate on that basis. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Newton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Could I just say that I'm a devoted animal lover, and I particularly like horses, having had them in our family for a number of years. I find this quite disturbing that this amount of horses, in fact any horse, will be left without anybody on site, particularly as I understand that this applicant is proposing to look after horses which require extra care. So that does concern me for their welfare. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of queries. I mean, from a personal perspective, and I understand that this has been addressed, the use of the track as an access when it's a designated footpath doesn't sit easily with me, though I do accept if the approved authority has said that that's okay, then I guess we have to accept that. It's, in the previous, statement, you said all issues have been addressed in the report. There is a little bit of, well, we could do this, we could do that, and the main one I'm actually quite concerned about is the water runoff, particularly the foul water runoff. At the moment, as I'm sure everybody is aware, the last thing we need is more excess fluid of an unpleasant nature going into rivers. And it does actually say in the document there, in the event site investigation, so a soakaway is not appropriate. An alternative is for access to be directed to the nearby stream. Doesn't really sound like a strategy, and there's a number of things in here, you know, about putting in a Clargester. But I know what that is, I know I've used them myself, and I know they're terribly inefficient. But I just wonder, rather than a series of options that seems to be outlined in paragraph 6.37, what is the plan, or do we know, or should we defer until such time as they've said, yes, this is what we're going to do, not we could do this, we could do that. Thank you.
I think members, you just need to be mindful, it's not unusual for us to ask for detailed drainage matters relating to foul surface water drainage by condition. So I think we just need to be mindful about what you need to consider the application acceptable. If there are conditions that you could add to an application to make it acceptable, then that's what you should do. So I think whilst we recognise drainage is an important matter, obviously the officer's view and consistent with other decisions that we make as an authority is that they can be managed by condition, which is why they're recommended on in this instance. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to run something past the officers on animal welfare. Can I just ask for my own clarification? Is that, you know, a planning issue? Is that something we need to consider as part of planning? I know it is a serious consideration in its own right.
My view is no, it's not a planning matter because it's governed by other laws and other matters. So it's not something that planning can govern in itself.
So just to clarify, as a planning consideration, that's not a consideration, but the business, if it was to go ahead, have to comply with whatever animal welfare regulations and laws are in existence anyway.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, Brown.
Thank you, Chair. My first question has been answered. That's is the welfare material to the plan application, or if it's covered on under the Animal Welfare Act. The other question is the pre-commencement conditions. Brief chat earlier. Have the pre-commencement conditions been agreed in way, shape, or form with the applicant?
We haven't received any formal confirmation yet. I did try and get, because the officer left a bit early today, so I won't be able to get confirmation. She may have received it, but it will be able to be received before we issue the decision.
Thank you very much.
If approved.
Councillor Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. I share Councillor Newton's concern about no on-site accommodation if you're going to put your horse into livery. As one who did that, I would have put my horse in livery without having somebody on site. However, I hear what the officers have said and I understand why they're suggesting this is appropriate in this location. I just have a question. There is a sound school proposed here. Is there going to be any lighting? Because bear in mind it gets dark at 3:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the winter time, because lighting in a countryside location can be very intrusive. Thanks.
No, there's no external lighting proposed, and condition 17 states that no external lighting or floodlighting should be installed other than with the permission of local plan lighting.
Councillor Landy.
Thank you, Chair. Wonder, could we have the drainage slide shown again, please? Now,
Originally, the tree officer was concerned about the trees on the northern boundary. And said something about if the approach was moved, he'd be happy with it. Can you tell me the car park and the track in Bray out there, is that going to be metalled? Because if it is, there are 3 trees where the root protection area goes underneath that track.
Just bear with me, so I'm sure it's. I can't see that the details in the report. There is condition 8, which requires details of hard landscaping scheme. So that will have to show details of all the hard surface saying that will also have to comply with any requirements regarding the protection of the trees. And the same for the drainage, any drainage and that's will have to also be suitably and sympathetic to the requirements.
If it's going to metal that bit along there, then it's got to cut through roots, or they're going to have to find another method of putting the track down.
Well, I think as my colleague had said, condition 8 covers the fact that materials will need to be submitted to be approved. You know, if the protection of the trees was a particular concern of members, we can ensure that's covered within the condition. So it is a specific requirement of whatever the final materials would be.
That it should be a condition.
Thank you, councillor Hamlin. If it is a condition, it just needs to be
Emphasise the tree.
emphasised. Yeah. Councillor Fletcher.
I'd like to thank the officers for a very good and detailed report, and it lays out quite clearly how the application has developed over time to meet the concerns that were raised with the initial design. And overall, this is something that is designed to contribute to the rural economy without significant intensification, and is considered to be appropriate form and level of activity for its rural location. It's in a very sheltered, screened location, so its landscape impact is minimal. And as the officers have said, that without the application including accommodation, it's not really for us as a planning matter to be trying to decide the detailed ins and outs of the business that's being proposed for this site. It seems perfectly reasonable that this should be have some flexibility in terms of the exact number of animals that are there, and the exact ratio between rehabilitation and livery and so on. I have read the report and looked at the red and agricultural comments, and they are not objecting. There are some concerns which, as the officer said, would have to be addressed in terms of animal welfare, but those do not fall within our remit to decide on. So the application as it stands, to me, there don't seem to be any significant material planning reasons to refuse this application for going ahead. It also doesn't have a significant impact on the neighbours. The track has been raised. The fire service have said that they are satisfied with that. Now, maybe part of the conditions in terms of access, we should be emphasising to make sure that the width, the accessible width of the track is not allowed to become reduced through overgrowth of vegetation. But overall, the fire service seem content with this. I'm aware that people are saying this is a very dangerous track. It is, however, a very slow track with very low level of use. So though it might be awkward, and there might be issues where there are people coming from both directions, this does not seem, there don't seem to be any reasons to disagree with the Highways Authority when they're assessing this as being acceptable in terms of highway safety. So those are my comments.
Thank you, councillor Fletcher. Just bear with me in case anybody else wants to speak, councillor, we'll bring it at the end, I think. Councillor Horsham.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to Councillor Fletcher, I really empathise with the parish council. I see that we've got 43 objections from members of the public. To the local communities, obviously, has some real fears over this site. However, I currently feel like Councillor Fletcher that my hands are tied. I can't see any formal planning grounds to turn this particular application down. Building a barn in the countryside, I guess over intensification could be a factor that we could refuse this on. But with a very limited number of car movements and a very limited commercialisation of the site, I think we're clutching at straws to try and find a reason to turn it down. I think I'm going to have to support the officer's recommendations. It stands.
Thank you. Just councillor Grant.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to echo what Councillor Hogben has just said. I think in terms of, on material planning grounds, I can't really see much there for us to refuse this application. I do think, however, that ensuring in condition and making it obvious about access for emergency services is something that we can potentially emphasise. But also, I think very significantly is again about controlling the runoff in the water runoff. We obviously don't want to exacerbate any pollutants or excess nutrients going into the water course. So perhaps we could emphasise that by condition. But overall, I'm minded to support this application this time.
Councillor Livingston.
Could I first of all have clarification in regard to the fire service? Have they actually confirmed that that track is suitable? Colleague, Councillor Fletcher stated that.
If you look at page 30, the comments are summarised there, the final comments from the fire service in paragraph 3.11. So they have raised concerns and asked for evidence to be provided that the access route would be capable of supporting 18-ton actual weight of the fire plants, a minimum of 3.1 through any gateway or narrowing 3.7 widths between curbs or track edges in the turning facility to ensure a fire plant doesn't need to reverse more than 20 metres. So it's not exactly clear from there whether they're talking about the access to the right of way or the access route. So it's not, I can't answer your question very there, but as I said, we have a condition there to require details to be submitted, and we know that the applicant is looking into that.
So if the condition is not met, okay, this becomes an objection. Because they can't alter the public right of way to make it wider or to change the terms.
I think what the officer's view is it can be managed by a condition. That it's not always the case that sometimes there are alternatives in terms of solutions. I'm speaking with my building control hat on and some experience from this on another site. Is sometimes there are alternative solutions by which something may be acceptable. I think our view is it can be managed by condition. Ultimately, if it's not satisfied, then we would refuse that condition. That's what would happen. But our view is it is likely that a solution can be found, which is why we are suggesting a condition to manage that element.
However, the condition relates to the track which is outside the control of the applicant. That point was made there. So, but the other between drainage. The drainage engineer has been dissatisfied with what's been submitted. And he's putting it down as another condition that will be resolved. Bear in mind, members, that we don't get to see how these conditions are resolved. We do not have a say on the conditions when they come back to be clear.
When we have drainage conditions, they have to go again back to the drainage engineer for his final sign. So yeah, it would have to go through that process of we'd consult our drainage engineer for their comments, and we'd have to get their approval before the condition was signed off.
Councillor Brown.
Question on conditions. Members actually asked to see when those conditions have been signed off.
It's not general practice that we would consult members on conditions, because as you can imagine, we get thousands and thousands and thousands. But if it's of a particular concern of members in terms of being involved in a condition process, you can amend the wording of the condition that says in consultation with. What I would say about drainage conditions is ultimately we're not drainage engineers, and maybe some of you are, but ultimately we'd be guided by that professional competence of our own expert drainage engineer in terms of the acceptability of that information. If members feel they want to be consulted and engaged, we can add that to the condition, but I think you just need to ask yourself what benefit does that bring to the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Livingston.
Well, as a qualified fire engineer who looks at access conditions for the fire service, many projects, I would like to be considered, but to be consulted on this condition required for the access to the fire service along the track to the property.
Thank you, Councillor Winston. Councillor Page.
Well, I would be happy to support an amendment to the conditions on drainage and fire access to ensure that they are decided in consultation with the and the chair of the committee.
Are you proposing that as a motion?
When we've finished the debate, if you'd like to come back, I'd be happy to propose that as a motion.
Well, we've got the condition basis, we can answer them if they're revisit the site, yeah, but we can't guarantee it, but we can ask.
So what I'm suggesting there quickly is that we, as part of the condition, we actually get a fire officer to go in there and have a look and make sure that happens. There's no guarantee that they will, but at least that way we can get some comfort from the guy that's driving the truck. Councillor Trott.
Sorry, Chair, I'll try and be brief. Could I propose that the condition in condition 3, if we're going down this route, is reworded to include, is tightened up so that it does say that in the condition is that a suitable strategy for dealing with water runoff is put in place, which does not involve runoff into any local watercourse.
I think I would just be slightly nervous about saying that. I'm not saying that I don't know technically or legally what is acceptable and what isn't. I wouldn't want the planning committee to add something to a condition that may be feasible and may be an acceptable approach. I don't know whether it is or it isn't, but I think that's where the technical expertise of our drainage engineer comes into play in terms of considering that option. So I'd just be slightly nervous about being so specific when we haven't got that expertise here to guide us. on that, you know, if we are, the suggestion has been made that it's considered in consultation with the local member and the chairman. And I would suggest that's where they can come in terms of considering that. And discussing with the officer and the drainage engineer at that time. Thank you.
If I may, therefore, by saying that we're not, that's not acceptable, we are therefore de facto saying that runoff into the stream is potentially acceptable. And personally, in the current situation, I can't accept that as an option. So I would not support anything that would allow anything that might pollute any rivers around here at the moment.
Councillor.
Yeah, just that's to reinforce maybe the point the head of development made. We're not in our capacity here as councillors, experts in drainage or access, etc. Our role here is, as I understand it, is members of this committee. And I'm just slightly confused about putting conditions in place where we're determining what the technical solution might be, when we may not be competent to know whether actually a degree of runoff is acceptable from a technical point of view or not. And I think also that I understand that ward councillors or other members of this committee might want to be consulted as to the solution, the technical solution. But I fear a conflict of interest there if that member of the committee is also acting as in a technical matter in that committee.
Suggestion, I don't know if it is possible, can we possibly approve this subject to the reassurance from our drainage experts? Reassurance being given that runoff will not be an issue, so pollutants will not get into the watercourse. Can we delegate for approval subject to being reassured by our technical drainage experts?
I think the involvement of the board member and myself.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That will be built into the condition, and that oversight should be sufficient. I mean, you know, frankly, we're not happy.
But
unhappy.
that's not how that's not how I understand the condition would work. I mean, I don't think if you're not happy with it, would it have to come back? That's not what you're saying. It's just part of the condition that you're consulted.
It is in consultation with, I think if there wanted to be, if you wanted certain information before you make a decision, then you could be minded to approve it, delegate to approve it, subject to confirmation from the drainage engineer.
That's my proposal, Chairman.
I guess that it goes back to the point that what if the drainage engineer says a small amount is fine, and then that means we probably need to bring it back to committee. So I guess that's the only thing you need to be mindful of. But that's your decision, members, and that's an option open to you. I think a more pragmatic approach is to having consultation with the local member and the chair on those particular matters that members are interested in, and then we can find out exactly what those technical experts say about these matters, and that can then be an informed decision at that time, rather than trying to pass judgment on those points right now. Thank you.
Councillor Minto.
I think as you said that, it kind of answered a bit of a concern I had, and not specifically this condition, but if we start putting in all kinds of conditions when we're not experts, that can't actually be achieved, therefore it renders the application unable to proceed. Am I right, and my concern is correct, that could then go to an appeal, and then the whatever they're called, inspectors will say, well, it's legal, and that condition doesn't hold water, therefore we lose the appeal. I'm just concerned that we're overcomplicating something with conditions based on not being experts. And therefore, we should be quite careful doing that.
No. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry, we're not taking any questions.
I'm not giving you a question, I was going to suggest some information.
Sorry,
that may help you.
please, we're not to engage with the public. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Minto. I would agree with you in terms of complicating matters. And it is, you know, we are here to make decisions, and we should be trying to make timely decisions. And if we don't make a decision, there is a risk of appeal against non-determination, and an inspector will take a view on those conditions. So it, you know, that is always a risk if we delay a decision. And, you know, an inspector is not going to add in consultation with local members on a condition. So I think we just need to be mindful of that. Having decisions made today in a timely manner does enable that engagement, which wouldn't happen if we had an appeal against non-determination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Grant.
I've listened with interest, and I think perhaps a potential solution might be that we look at the wording of the conditions so as not to bring ourselves into any dead end corner that we can't get out of. So perhaps in reference to the drainage, perhaps we can change the wording on any proposal to the condition would be along the lines that any runoff would not be in excess or over and above any permitted legal level. And that can be a condition that can be satisfied by the drainage engineer without consultation with members. And then on the access, then it needs a simple statement written and confirmed from the Fire and Rescue Service that they have no concerns, or they have concerns, or they don't have concerns about access to this site in the event of an emergency. Then if those conditions can be satisfied, then perhaps we can find a way of moving forward.
Thank you, Chairman. I've also listened to the debate, and I think members are generally supportive of the application, but are seeking some clarity on the conditions and specific wording to meet some specific concerns that members have. An option open to you is to delegate approval subject to the finding details of wording of conditions in consultation with the local member and the chair and vice chair. And I think at that point we can consider some of these detailed points around specific wording, and we can discuss that further. So that would be my suggestion, members, if somebody wished to put that forward as an alternative motion.
Excuse me, we're just going to take a couple of minutes adjournment.
Because obviously other restraints then so but I think the reason that get people to how much getting in it's not like a year.
Thank you very much. Right, we're getting close to the end. Then Councillor Ellis Brown, you say?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We're getting ourselves a bit prepared for this. Support what the head of development has put forward. Can we change the pre-commencement condition? because of various reasons. I believe the condition we have in there, condition 3, that will actually cover what we're discussing. So I would support what the saying. We need to be mindful that we could get ourselves into a real pickle by changing the conditions, certainly pre-commencement condition.
So can we, is there anybody else want to? Councillor Fletcher.
I said that that was to consider a motion about the conditions being decided separately, but I've listened to what councillor Vickers, councillor Ellis Brown and the head of development have said, and I'm happy to go with that as a solution, because I think what the debate has shown is that members have a fairly fundamental doubt about whether or not these conditions are capable of being met. So they're referring for approval. So this seems to be more appropriate than what I originally was suggesting.
Sorry, councillor Fletcher, can I just clarify your motion is to defer or delegate?
Delegate.
Okay.
Delegate, wrong word, yeah.
Thank you.
Apologies for that. Yeah.
Okay, so would somebody like to move that motion?
I think the head of development actually did what I was trying to say, which is delegate this for approval, subject to those conditions being clarified with the technical experts in consultation with the local manager and yourself. Thank you.
And I'd be happy to second that.
Okay, all those in favour?
Sorry, councillor Skip left the room while during the.
Councillor Skip.
So unfortunately you can't vote.
I was just going to raise that.
Good. Splendid.
Any against? One against, and any abstentions? Is that one abstention? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. That's the matter approved. So, of course you can. You take a quick break. Yeah, 2 minutes. Thank you, thank you. We'll move on. We will move on to item number 7. DC 231909, the Owl, Dorking Road, Kingsfold, West Sussex, RE 1236A. Presentation.
So before I start, I have an informative to add to the recommendation of approval. The informative will state that prior to works, the applicant should seek the advice of the County Council Highways Authority regarding the relocation of the bus stop to facilitate the new access onto Dorking Road. And here we see the location of the site. The site relates to the Owl Public House, which is within the settlement of Kingsfold. The pub is on the corner of Dorking Road, Marches Road, with housing to the north and south. So this photo is taken from Google Street View in 2023. It shows the existing access to the park from Marches Road. This will be the access to be used for the new houses. So that's there will be where you see the new detached houses. Brilliant. This is the other side from Dorking Road, and the parking here is to be retained with a new access to the car park and pub. This is where the existing pub sign is, and this is where the bus stop is. You can already see it there. The bus stop sign to be relocated. Should the submitted transport statement states that the new access to the car park will result in improved visibility display for this said car park area. So here we see the existing layout of the park. Pub is on the corner of the two roads and benefits from a large car park area and an outside area, as you can see here, with two accesses either side. This plan shows a location with the proposed pair of semi-detached houses in place in the southwest corner, and this shows the relationship of the proposed building in relation to the nearest properties to the south. This is a more detailed proposed block plan. The proposal is for two houses within one semi-detached building. The building will take a part of the car park of the public house, access from Marges Road, with two parking spaces per house. Each house would benefit from a rear garden. The scheme would retain 50 car parking spaces for the pub. This is considered an appropriate amount of car parking for a public house in this location. The scheme includes relocating the access to the car park from Dorking Road border south, as previously discussed, as shown here. So here we see the proposed elevations of a pair of dwellings. They're a traditional design with a barn-hipped roof, red brickwork, hanging tiles, and concrete roof tiles. The appearance of the dwellings would match the existing properties in the area and is considered appropriate. This plan also shows a side elevation of the building facing south, which would include a small obscure glazed window serving the bathroom. This will stop any overlooking of the properties to the south. So we see the proposed floor layouts and the roof layout of the dwelling. Each dwelling includes 3 bedrooms, as shown here. Finally, here is the existing proposed street scene with the proposed houses in place. This shows that the pair of dwellings would be an appropriate addition in the street scene, with ample distance between the houses and the public house and the adjacent existing dwellings outside. As outlined in the report, whilst this is considered a countryside location in policy terms, this location is considered acceptable given that it's within the established settlement of Kingsfold. Kingsfold is proposed to be allocated as a secondary settlement within the local plan review. Whilst this can only be given limited weight at this time, it shows a direction of travel for this area. In addition, consideration is given to the council's lack of 5-year housing supply, the delivery of additional housing, and the MPPF's requirement to favour sustainable development in cases where there is a lack of 5-year housing land supply. In terms of water neutrality, the houses would include water-saving measures to reduce their consumption. To offset the remaining water demand for the proposed houses, water flow regulators are proposed to fit into the public house to reduce the overall water usage of the park. This results in the scheme being water neutral, and conditions are recommended to ensure these measures are installed. The proposal is also considered appropriate for all of the material planning considerations such as highway safety, drainage, and impact on residential meeting, as outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Speakers. As before, 2 minutes, please. 5 minutes for the parish council. Greg Morley-Smith.
Good evening.
and I have got 2 minutes to stop a fatal accident in my hamlet. Why do I care after 34 years of caring? I'll tell you why. The council have on 3 previous occasions denied access on or off this 120-yard stretch of the A24 as being too dangerous. 1. Northbound 20 yards before the turning into the Owl, access from the cottages was blocked as it was deemed too dangerous. 2. When the pub became the Wise Old Owl, the council decided it was too dangerous to use the existing entrance and exit off the A24, insisting that a sign was put up, sending motorists 60 yards further to the junction to turn left into the Marches Road to the official safe entrance and exit. An entrance you are now proposing to close completely. A large no exit sign out of the car park remains, warning motorists of the danger of leaving directly onto the A24. 3. Access for a single household off the A24 next to the southbound bus stop, which is directly opposite the new proposed entrance to the Owl, was denied. Again, too dangerous. Yet traffic flow has increased instead, with the more HGVs, cars, vans and motorbikes travelling at high speeds, now making it more dangerous than ever. This will increase the possibility of a fatal accident. Residents daily witness vehicles speeding along this 120-yard stretch of the A24. That is why this planning application must be rejected. Question: why would you approve a planned facility for 2 private houses when council history has shown that any access onto this stretch of the A24 is dangerous?
Thanks, Greg. That's 2 minutes. Thanks. We won't have too much of that, I hope. Richard Smith, please.
Good evening, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, committee. My name is Richard Smith. I'm a chartered civil engineer with over 40 years' experience in the construction industry, and particularly in the water and wastewater industry. And I'm also a resident in the March Kingscroft for the last 24 years. So I was asked by the residents, which most of them are here, for my overview of the water and wastewater provisions within the planning application, together with other observations that I should address in turn. The water. The letter of 29% of subject water, because diversion of the water main has been now covered under a drainage statement dated the 14th of June. However, there's no evidence of anything being accepted by Southern Water of that diversion. Surface water and sewage. It is noted that the new houses will share their own closets of tank. They can collect our drainage from the dwellings. Pipe routing of the effluent discharge of the tank is intended to join the existing outlet line from the out. This line actually overflows regularly onto the A24. So therefore, as any provision by the technical team to show that the additional flows from the proposed development does not worsen the issue and cause a hazard to traffic. The main issue I have objection to, and it's already been raised by about my fellow resident here, is the access. Whilst it's first important that the A24 location lies within an S bend of the highway, the A24. It is not a straight road. And there are several drawings misinformation on that. That the Google Earth has shown. So, as key issues that we have had as residents, and we have raised it both with representations to West Sussex County Council, the local parish council, and even our local MP about crossing the A24. So, and now we've got Marches Road as a cut through from the A29. So we have speeding, we have volume of traffic. All these things are not addressed in the application.
Thanks.
And now
That's 2 minutes. Thanks very much. Thanks very much. Rachel Lowry.
Over 13,000 vehicles travel through Kingsfold each day on the A24 alone. More than 3,000 of these vehicles are vans, buses and HGVs. Adding those travelling via Marches Road, and the traffic numbers through Kingsfold exceed 169,000 vehicles every week. The roads are overloaded, the hamlet is a bottleneck. It is therefore essential that every measure can be taken to avoid creating congestion and hazard is taken. Contrary to what some of the developers' plans would have you believe, the layout of the A24 next to the Owl is in fact S-shaped. Travelling south through Kingsfold, the upper curve of that S-shape forms a blind left bend as you pass Marches Road and come alongside the pub. The developers intend to create a single access point off the A24 with barely 33 metres between the new entrance to the pub and Marches Road. Here lies the problem. That blind bend means that a vehicle stopped on the southbound carriageway waiting for one of the 6,500 northbound vehicles to let them cross into the Owl will not be visible to other vehicles coming south through the hamlet until the last possible moment. The car behind will then have as little as 33 metres to avoid a collision. The developers ATC conducted during the wettest February on record advising the 85th percentile speed for vehicles travelling south through Kingsfold, 38.5 miles per hour. The stopping distance for a car travelling in fine weather at that speed is 35 metres, greater than the distance available to them on the road due to the blind left bend. Vehicles travelling faster than this, adverse weather, or any one of those 3,000 vans, buses or HGVs, the stopping distance increases dramatically. You cannot place a right-hand turn immediately after a blind left bend on a 40-mile-an-hour road with insufficient stopping distance and not expect there to be lethal consequences. For that reason, we object to this application in the strongest terms and ask that you act solely in consideration of the safety of Kingsfold residents and the 169,000 visiting vehicles in our hamlet each week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Jeremy Head.
Good evening, Chair and members. I represent the applicant, Punch Challenge. You will see the committee briefing that was circulated, highlighting the scale and positioning of the proposed houses are sympathetic to the streetscape, and there will be no overlooking or overshadowing of adjoining neighbours. The emerging Horsham district local plan identifies Kingsfold as a secondary settlement where infilling will be appropriate. The council has acknowledged a 5-year housing now supply shortfall, meaning its current policies are out of date. In this situation, it's appropriate to give weight to the emerging local plan and to acknowledge that this is a sustainably located brownfield site where the principle of housing develops is acceptable. The pub will retain 50 parking spaces, which is a marginal reduction on the existing, but is considered acceptable by the Highway Authority and by Punch Taverns. The houses will use the existing access of Marches Road, as you've heard, with 2 parking spaces each, and the Owl will be served by new access off Dorking Road. A 7-day speed survey was undertaken at the request of the Highway Authority to demonstrate the required visibility displays for the new access. At 60 metres in both directions, the proposed displays meet the required distances in full, ensuring that the new access will be safe for road users. As the site falls within the Sussex North Water Supply Zone, water neutrality statement has been submitted, confirming that water neutrality can indeed be achieved through the use of a flow regulator in the pub. Naturally, have confirmed their agreement to this. We've also submitted a detailed drainage strategy at the council's request, which sets out the full drainage strategy for the site, which again has been found acceptable. In conclusion, the scheme will provide much needed family housing in a sustainable location. And I respectfully request you for our permission to. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. Right. Sally Pavey from the parish now.
Good evening. I'm Sally Pavey. I'm Chair of Horsham Parish Council, and I'm here to represent the views of
Horsham Parish Council this evening. Firstly, we've had lots of Kingswell residents attend our meetings raising concerns about this application, and the council agreed to oppose this planning application on the 19th December last year. Kingswell is a hamlet in our parish and it sits to the north. It suffers the A24 and Marches Road high volume of traffic. The hamlet's housing is split almost in half, with no safe passage across the A24, referred to as the Dorking Road by the applicant, with a major junction at Marches Road, close to where the proposed development would be located, and seeks access for the pub. The public house, the Owl, provides a community centre for this hamlet and plays an integral role in keeping the community together, as there are no other venues or playgroups or anything in Kingswold, and you have to drive to the Horsham Village Centre. Removal of parking spaces could lead to demise of the public house and the events that may have historically taken place there. A significant reduction in the parking spaces will lead to on-road parking. Development on this site, in our opinion, will not enhance this hamlet. In fact, it will be retrospective and encroach on neighbouring properties. The highway must be a major concern. The council is currently working to provide speed indicator devices. As members will appreciate, these seldom work, but we need to safeguard the residents that are currently living there. There is no funding for the A24 to be diverted. As such, developments would be adding to the issues that West Sussex Council highways are very aware of, with the speeding traffic, mix of vehicles, lorries, cars and buses. We do not envisage that the SIL money would enable a council or West Sussex to provide any mitigation in these areas of highway systems. The traffic flow survey undertaken by West Sussex, not available at the time when the council wrote to you, clearly shows a significant increase in traffic on both the Dorking Road and Marches Road, as well as speeds of over 60 miles an hour on the 40-mile-an-hour zone. This can only increase with developments at Dunsfold, North Horsham, Aldercheap, and the like through the local plan and Surrey future developments. The traffic survey offered by the developer would seem to have taken place during the school holidays. As such, we would suggest it does not reflect the true traffic issues the hamlet endures. The site is adjacent to the current 3 departure flight past Gatwick Airport and final approach of all arrivals. With the threat of a new runway, this could intensify the aircraft noise issues, and the modernisation of airspace currently has a departure route that would impact and fly over these properties. We ask members to refuse this planning application as a development in this location is not sustainable, is of a dangerous location, accessing the highway system, and that is not identified in the parish council's neighbourhood development plans. And I thank you for your time this evening.
Thanks, Sally. Okay. Back to the office.
Just want to come back on the main issues, which is the highways. We totally understand residents' concerns regarding the highways access. And there may have been other applications in the area which weren't considered acceptable, but that could have been for a number of reasons. And but we have each application has to be looked at its own merits. So this application has been looked at by the highways through the Highway Authority, who have visited the site and have looked at the concerns raised by the parish and commented that they feel that the application is acceptable. This takes into account the speed surveys and the capacity and the amount of trips this would generate, and also looks at the visibility space that are being offered. So based on their professional judgments, this is in accordance with the manual for streets and meets their requirements, and no objection is raised from the highways perspective.
Thank you. Right. Board members, would one of you prefer to go first? Do you, Tang?
Yes, okay, will do. Can I just query the amount of attention that West Sussex Highways have given to this application?
that they have visited the site, and we are aware that the officer they have seen the comments from the parish council and have considered them. So the officer was aware that concerns were raised, they sought some further guidance from highways, and that they were aware of those comments, they visited the site, and their comments are as printed. I think it's also worth noting on the plans that the block plan, that the proposed access is further to the north than the current access of the pub. So it is in a different, just so members are clear, it is in a different location than the current access. So just to be aware of that, thank you.
That's not an access.
Thank you, I would like to speak on this, but I'd be happy to wait and hear what other people have to say. And I'll hand over to my ward member to start, and then I'll wait for officers to see what members have to say before I have to say.
Thank you. Before that happens, listen, please, the public are not to say anything during this meeting. We've had your opportunities to speak. Please don't raise your voices again.
Thank you. To be honest, when I looked at the application, I was not surprised that the access to the pub had been highlighted as a safety concern via highways. As you approach the pub from either direction down Dorking Road, you come round the bend. Appreciate the report states that the sight lines allow a safe stopping distance, but relying completely on the vehicle behind you travelling behind you and at an appropriate speed. And I've walked down that road. It's not only the volume of traffic, it's the speed and the type of traffic that comes down there. You get massive HGVs, the buses. It feels dangerous, just from the experience of being there. And I know Kingsford residents are pushing for traffic calming measures, and obviously I support that, but it's going to take time, and there's no guarantee that they will actually happen. So it's really concerning to me that if we grant this, it's an act of waiting to happen and it doesn't proceed.
Thank you.
I think these sorts of applications are always quite challenging for members when you've got particular concerns being raised on highway matters. I think the difficulty is obviously we have a technical report to in support of this application, that the highway authority have considered this and have considered local concerns, and are of the view that the access is acceptable. So the difficulty is if you were to refuse it, you would have to substantiate that with evidence that we could defend our appeal. And I think that's what members need to be mindful of in considering this application. Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I looked at this application, and I can see that there are arguments for and against the loss of the parking places in order to put the houses there. But in view of the current position on our highway land supply and the fact that the tilt balance applies, and that 50 parking spaces are being assessed as being an appropriate number for the pub, I think as far as that concerns, the balance of the arguments weigh in favour of permitting the application. However, like everybody else who has spoken, or most people have spoken so far, the highway access is really quite surprising on this. This is a major road, it's an A road, and the traffic, the 85th centile speed was stated to be about 38 point something miles per hour. As one of the speakers said, there is a question as to whether that's actually representative of the traffic. Normally, if it's only taken on one particular survey time, it's surprising that that West Sussex is using the manual streets visibility displays. Its own report says that manual streets guidance. Manual streets should only be considered when carriageway speeds are below 40 miles an hour. So we've got around 15% on that one traffic survey that are above 38 point something miles per hour. And at other times, it's quite possible that the 85th percentile is higher than that, speed is higher than that. But manual for streets is a design manual for streets. Streets are places where people live and work and play, and they're not major roads that are designed primarily for movement. The A road here is a road, it's not a street. And as West Sussex acknowledge, normally the design manual for roads and bridges would be the appropriate standard. And that would require a different set of visibility displays. That's why they asked for the 7-day speed survey to be undertaken, because the manual for streets is being used in a condition where you would normally use design manual for roads and bridges. So although they are the Highways Authority, they are the experts in this. I think we have serious cause to have some concern as to the validity of this approach on this particular road in this particular position. It's also the case that as well as it being some holidays when this was done, a snapshot, it's also the case that there will be increased traffic from the North of Horsham development and other developments that are occurring nearby. And it's also interesting to look at the approach of Surrey County Council just over the boundary from this, where their plans for their corridor developments along the A24 include improved safety for pedestrians and cyclists by reducing speed limits and adding additional road crossings along this very same road. So it seems very surprising to me that West Sussex is not at least proposing that there should be a requirement for the speed to be reduced to 30 miles an hour at this location, particularly given that the new speed limit policy pass is now much more permissive towards lower speed limits. So I know it's really difficult because of the NPP to go against the guidance of the Highways Authority on these matters, because they are the experts on safety. But I am wondering whether there might be some way we could question whether additional information is needed, whether it could be reviewed, whether there is some way that this could be looked at again, because it does seem very out of keeping with what we would normally expect for a road of this type. And I think although each individual application has to be considered on its own merits, as the officers say, the fact that there have been so many cases in the past where having an access of the A24 here was considered to be a problem is a really material fact. And when you look at the proposed design for this access, it's actually it's at 90 degrees with very little display. It's actually not going to be a terribly visible entrance or exit from the highway, which will mean that drivers who are not paying as much attention or are pushing the speed to the maximum will have less warning of a likelihood of a vehicle stopping and turning or coming out. So I'd like to ask the officers for their guidance to see what we could do to try to get a rethink on the highways aspect of this.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Members can choose to defer the item if you feel that further guidance and information is needed from West Sussex County Council as a highway authority, such as Councillor Fletcher said, in terms of the particular guidance documents that they've drawn on and why they've not used others. That is open to members to defer it for that reason. I think what you can't necessarily do in a deferral is completely redesign the scheme, because the scheme we have is the one before us with the access in that location. So I think we can certainly go away and seek some further guidance. If you have particular questions you wish for us to put to the county council, we can certainly do that and bring it back. But but a deferral generally couldn't fundamentally change the scheme. Obviously, it can be up to members how you choose to decide on it if it returns, but that's my advice, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. My question is, when do we take the information provided? When is it considered a point of application or a point of decision making?
Sorry, councillor, could you just clarify your question?
Yes, sorry, I didn't explain it very well. When the application was made in December last year. So are we considering the application as it was made in December 23 this evening? Or are we then considering it's post December 23 this evening? The reason I ask is that if it's considered in December 23, Warden's neighbourhood plan is still valid. It's within the 5-year time frame. It's only outside the time frame which says it been made on June the 20, considered June the 27th June this year. That's when it fell outside the 5-year plan, 5-year NPPF requirement. But the point of application, Warden's neighbourhood plan was still valid.
So you will make the decision as of now. So whatever the policy position is now, that's in how we assess it. So it's at this very point in time that committee are considering it. What is the policy context now? And that's where you should make a decision. Thank you.
Hopefully that's clear for everybody. Sorry, Councillor.
Can I just clarify something with officers? So you said that if we defer, the plan can't change the access point will be along there. If we were to refuse permission and this goes to appeal and goes to the inspectorate, will they just apply what the highway authority has found, or will it be re-looked at?
I think just to be, if it's deferred and then you bring it back, it will be for members to consider whether you feel that additional information satisfies your concerns or not, and you could determine it as you see fit, use it, approve it. So you know, so that would be the process for that. In terms of an appeal, you know, if members were to refuse it, as I outlined earlier, you have to substantiate your refusal with evidence. And an inspector would consider the evidence that the council puts forward and all representations received, but also they would also consider the comments from the county highway authority as part of that. So they would have to make a judgment based on all of that, whether there is sufficient justification to substantiate a refusal in accordance with national policy or not. So that's what an inspector would just consider everything. There is no guaranteed outcome of what an appeal would be. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Chairman. I entirely agree with everything that Councillor Fletcher has just said. It never ceases to amaze me that we can think something is dangerous and the highway authority has a completely different view. That has happened to us on so many occasions. 2 questions for the planning officer. Have we ever won an appeal on a straightforward application where the highway authority has raised no objections and we refused it on highways grounds for safety reasons? That's one question. And the other question is, this is included in the agenda because the proposal represents a departure from the development plan. And my understanding, having read the report carefully, is if it wasn't for the lack of a 5-year land supply, we probably wouldn't be recommending approval for it. So I think there are 2 questions. We often disagree with West Sussex County Council. As local residents and people who actually live with these roads, we know them better than most people do. And I think a deferral is probably the way to go on this particular occasion. So I would be happy to support that suggestion. I just wonder whether there's any evidence we've ever succeeded simply on an objection to a highways issue on its own, when highways have said absolutely fine.
I wouldn't want to comment any definitive view on the first question, councillor, because I think it's incredibly difficult to substantiate a refusal in the absence of an objection from the county council. But it is all about how you substantiate your case and demonstrate it. You know, if you have clear evidence, you know, not just an opinion that something is unsafe, and you can evidence that, then you may be able to substantiate your refusal. But it is difficult to do that if there is just a general comment that we feel it's unsafe without any evidence to back that up. So that's my answer to the first one. I've forgotten councillor Setbeck, because I've forgotten what the second question
The
was.
second question was, this is on here partly.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Departure from the development.
Yes, so the answer is kind of yes and no to that. Essentially, at the moment, the recommendation is because we haven't got a 5-year housing land supply, and obviously that carries substantial weight. But obviously we are proposing it as a secondary settlement in the new local plan. So if at a point in time that carries substantial weight, then it could be some infill development is acceptable, but obviously that's subject to its own process. And we have to assess the application based on the policy now and our position of not having a 5-year housing land supply. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Minto.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I'm in full support of Councillor Fletcher, the Councillor Hicks as well, with regards to deferring for a really deep second opinion on the safety of that road. And just to share why I feel quite strongly about this is growing up in Horsham all my life, and if someone to say to me, pinpoint the road that you would say is the most dangerous road or up there in the top 3, it would be this road. The amount of fatalities that I'm aware of, growing up through the Cromwell's years on that road, and actually passing a vehicle onto the roof after an accident on the way to my nan's funeral. There's etched that in my brain that this is not a road we need to do anything to that makes safety compromised in any way, shape or form. So I would urge us to ask for that second opinion and a strongest viewpoint that can be taken on this. Because I really, really have a bad history and a bad feeling about that road. Thank you.
So, sorry.
No.
Councillor Newton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I find this application is particularly pertinent because I regularly use the cut through of Marches Road from the A29 to the A24 in both directions. If this development were to go ahead, when you are coming south, I think it's south, from the A24 to turn right down Marches Road, inevitably you go as far forward as you can because of the S-bend. And if you deem it to be safe, you immediately put your foot down to get round the corner. In which case you go slap bang into cars accessing or entering this new development, these new houses. I think it's so dangerous, it's untrue, and as we've heard from people, I mean, the A24 is that particular stretch is absolutely lethal. It really is. It's jolly dangerous. We've had fatalities, as Colin Minto has said. We've had some horrible accidents on it. We really have. I did a query right at the very beginning, the head of development said that they had done a traffic survey, but I do query it. I really do. I think I would be really interested in knowing exactly this. Before I forget, I do think that Horsham Parish Council have actually done their own traffic survey, which I don't think we've seen. So that shows quite a lot of traffic. The traffic in rush hour is so constant, it's untrue, but what is, in my opinion, ever more dangerous is out of rush hour, when traffic zooms round those corners. I mean, they under no circumstances do they do anything less than 40 miles an hour. And it's really dangerous, so consequently, if it is of general interest to other people that we refuse this, on the premise that I really feel that an inspector would actually look at it and understand what it was all about, I really do. I would prefer us to actually turn it down, I really would. But if members in general feel that they would like to do Councillor Fletcher's suggestion, which is defer it until a really comprehensive traffic survey has been done by West Sussex County Council, then so be it. But personally, and I know the area very well indeed, I don't think it's a sensible solution at all. I really don't. I think we should refuse it. It is really seriously dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Councillor Greenwood.
Thank you, Chair. I understand that we have to rely on experts and reports that we get, but I don't understand why that was supersede what seems to be common sense and local knowledge, which is what we're here for. And in terms of evidence, what the Parish Council did do a traffic survey, 50,000 vehicles, and it showed that average around 80% of vehicles were speeding, and the average speed of those speeding vehicles was 45 miles an hour. So, I mean, if the, West Sussex County Council report is based on, stopping distances for cars travelling at the speed limit, and it's not something we can be reliant upon. If 80% of vehicles going through there are speeding, and my big concern about deferrals that you say the application will come back as it is, and I just don't think the access from the people.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just an observation, really. Traffic surveys are all well and good, but actually the evidence, sadly, that must make a difference. One, the number of accidents that have actually occurred, and two, the fatalities. And I haven't heard anybody talk about fatalities and accidents in terms of West Sussex County Council highways, but I would dearly love to know what they are, because I think that should make a difference when considering.
Councillor.
I've been travelling along that road for 60 years. And it horrifies me every time because you set the land. That is the reality of what we're facing. The risk of further flowers on that really dangerous section. And I know there may not be any statistical evidence, but what I would highlight is that Surrey has actually reduced the speed limit on their section from 50 to 40. And West Sussex Council has kept it at 50. I'm not really sure procedurally whether to follow Tricia's proposal or whether to follow Ruth's. But we do need to stop deaths on that road.
Just to be clear, it is actually 40 through that.
And just to say, I appreciate it's an emotive issue here. I think we just need to consider the position in terms of the evidence. And I'm sorry to reiterate my point, but if you are to substantiate a reason for refusal, you can't just say it's unsafe. We have to substantiate it. And bearing in mind what members have said, it may be therefore you've got a number of questions to ask the county councillor's highway authority to better inform your position on that evidence base. And I know that's been put forward, but I just think we just need to be mindful about emotive points and generalised comments about safety when we have to consider the evidence before us. And it's for members to make that judgment, but I wouldn't want us to to put forward a reason for refusal that's not substantiated and therefore there is little chance of success at appeal. So I think members just need to be mindful of that. Thank you.
Chairman, could I just raise an objection? I don't think emotive is the right word to use, actually. I don't think anybody's being emotive. I think we're just using common sense as knowledgeable users of the road.
Councillor Andrew.
On this business of evidence, surely if Warden Parish Council has conducted a survey, a proper survey, and come up with, this is surely evidence, so can't we use that evidence?
I think we're not clear as officers how much the county council have seen as that, and that might be something that we wish to have further knowledge of. In terms of, you know, have county seen that? What weight does that have? What does it show? You know, I don't have that speed survey before me to be able to then provide that with evidence. So I appreciate we've had comments about it, but members haven't seen it or know what the substantive comments are. So it may, councilling and value, it may, but I think we haven't got that information before us, in my view, to be able to use that in this case. Thank you.
I might just quickly say something here. We appear to be a bit uncertain about this in its current form. And you know, maybe deferral to just clarify a few things here might be the way forward, because we're starting to go around in circles a little bit. I'm happy to keep going if anybody wants to raise something new, but you know, we know it's a dangerous road. I've been driving up and down there for 50, 60 years. It's a dangerous road, you know, but you know, the county council unfortunately has said it's okay. And that is what we have to address in this review. If you refuse it.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and that kind of is exactly my point. I think we all feel they've made a mistake. How do we get around that?
Well, I think we have to, as I say, defer it and come up with the right questions for it. There is some information on that at an accident spot.
Do you want me to? I've been looking online on the westsussex.gov.uk website. There's a roads and travel section, road safety. There's a collision locations map for a 5-year period. I'll just go back a step in a minute and tell you what period this is, what exact dates this spans. But it shows for the Kingsfold area on that junction 5 accidents, 4 of which are slightly more serious, according to their particular data. And so this was injury collisions reported to the police for the 5-year period between the 1st of June 2019 to the 31st of May 2024. So they are located, they are ones that are, say, located in that area that were reported to the police. That might not include all of them, but I would imagine that that data is going to be feeding into what they're relying on.
Sorry, just a point on that. Between 2019 and 2024, we did have 2 years of COVID.
Councillor Minto.
Thank you, Chair. Whether this is appropriate or not to raise, but I feel I want to raise it. There is, of course, another solution here. We have representatives of lunch taverns in the room, listening to residents, listening to members, listening to customers' concerns. So whatever happens in this process, I wonder if there will also be an opportunity for them to consider the sentiment that's being said, and if there were alternatives that were maybe not as viable, but alternatives, whether they could potentially be considered as well. Just on the off chance, just wanted to throw that one out there, because there is so much passion in the room about this, amongst everybody. And And it's no disrespect to them, they're obviously running a business and want to optimise their asset, but might not have been aware of the key sentiment around this subject, and maybe this might help them think that through. Potentially, just wanted to throw that in, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Chairman, I'm happy to support Councillor Fletcher's deferral, if Councillor Fletcher wants to put that forward to motion. I do think we need to be specific on the grounds for that. And I think it is that this has been evaluated as a street, and there's 40-mile-an-hour street. Now, the developer inadvertently probably produced evidence that 15% of the traffic goes over 40 miles an hour on that road. The parish council have produced evidence that the speed limit on that road is over 40 miles an hour. So therefore, I think our question to West Sussex County Council, if the officers can make a note, is that the parish council and themselves have proved that over 15% of the traffic goes by 40 miles an hour. I think what I would want is some visibility. I mean, at 40 mile an hour, the stopping distance is 36 metres. If the parish council said the stopping distance at 45 mile an hour, or at 50 mile an hour, it's still less than what they say. Now, if the applicant has proven that there is a 60-metre splay, we can't sit there and argue that it's not. So I think our best chance of supporting the local community, supporting Councillor Utan, is to get this reassessed as a major road. Go back to, just go for the deferral. So, we need to ask the right questions. But perhaps we could, just move the evening on, vote on the deferral. Thank you.
Councillor reckon that.
Sorry, I may have missed it, but if that's not material in front of us, is that material, then because we've heard it, is that material to our decision? We must take what was presented to us and material forward. And in your summing up the information provided to us, irrespective of what we may have heard elsewhere, is that correct? So the point I'm making here is that if the residents have said there's X thousand vehicles per day, and 15% are going more than this, is that material to decision if it's not within the material that we have to make a decision?
It's based on the survey submitted, which have to meet the guidelines that the county would normally see it. It's submitted for this type of application, and they consider it acceptable to meet the manual of the street. So as I said, they have taken into account the comments of the parish were forwarded, but some of the details regarding their speed survey were forwarded. As Emma said, I'm not exactly sure how much of that they saw. So they are aware of the concerns of residents of the parish and have not objected. So it's based on their professional opinion, I'm afraid, on the guidance and the manual of the streets.
And in answer to your question, what people say that's not in here shouldn't be. I mean, we can listen, we can make us feel a bit passionate and what have you, but at the end of the day, it's not. If it contradicts what's in here, then without any substance, without any proof, then we have to be very careful about taking that on board.
Councillor Rose, to answer the question, is if there was a professional speed survey from another technical expert submitted, then that would form an evidence base that the council can consider, as well as the information submitted as part of the application and the county highway engineer's comments, that they would all be information that you can consider. As I said, we can't consider just general. Well, you can consider them, but it would have limited weight in terms of just a general statement without some kind of technical evidence behind it. But if there was that technical evidence, then members can consider that. Thank you.
A question to the officer. I think in the past we have had an officer from West Sussex County Council and Planning Committee meeting. Is that a possibility? As this is such an emotive, not the word, such a serious subject, and lots of people are concerned about it. I share those concerns. I've driven that road many times. Is it possible to ask the right questions and also to get that person to come to the planning committee and answer further questions if necessary?
We can certainly ask some questions, and it would be useful to hear clearly what members wish officers to ask. in terms of attendance at committee, we can certainly ask them. What I would say from experience is obviously they cover the whole of West Sussex. And they do generally attend committees for much larger schemes, and I appreciate this is important for the local community and members consider it important, but they need to manage their resources. So we can certainly ask, but I'm aware that they haven't turned down a request at another authority for a small scale development, because obviously they need to manage all councils across West Sussex. Thank you.
Just in not to disagree with that, but although this is only the development of 2 houses, it is actually facilitating a new access for a 50-car car park off the A24. So, you know, that's the issue here, that the people are having trouble with, not the houses. But the problem here is we've got a 50 cars turning off the A24, lunch times, tea times, dinner times, and you know, it's a problem. We're having a problem with it, and maybe we do need to see them here and justify their decision on this. Sorry, Councillor Brooks.
The debate has of course moved on a little bit since I first raised my hand. But it was, and I think the members have essentially come to the same conclusion. But I really wanted to say that I deeply sympathise with the positions of Councillors Greenwood and Utan in wanting to potentially seek refusal to clearly forestall what we are all concerned about here. But I do think that a deferral here not only affords us, as we have been, and I will thank the officers for making this clear, the opportunity to interrogate precisely why West Sussex County Council Highways have come to these conclusions. I would also suggest it offers the opportunity and the time to create a more robust evidence base, and perhaps residents might appreciate the opportunity to have contact with local members in assembling a more robust evidence base, rather than the anecdotal expressions that we had this evening. Though I would be guided by officers as to whether there are some constraints on any novel.
No, I think that's going to be an interesting one to get a response on.
I think it was fine up to a point, Councillor Brooks.
That's been said before.
I think what you know, members can't work with the local community to seek to substantiate a reason for refusal. You know, you're impartial and you have to consider the evidence base before you, whatever party in the process that's from. So I would suggest that's not appropriate. But you're right, you know, if the community wish to submit further information as within that deferral process, then we can of course consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I apologise for misspeaking there.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened with huge interest to officers and members, and also presentations tonight. I think we've come to the point where the applicant themselves can understand the sentiment and the rationale of members' travel, direction of travel on this, and the applicant themselves indeed might like to either withdraw their application and resubmit a new one. It's up to them, of course. And also, I do support deferment, because clearly this application in terms of safety isn't what we want. But in terms of the housing itself, I haven't heard anyone objecting to actually having houses constructed. I don't think that's what we've come across in this discussion tonight. It's been predominantly around road safety, access, and all these kind of things. So the applicant has an opportunity to digest that and consider that potentially. But I would support and echo Councillor Hogman again, seems to be echoing a lot tonight, in supporting the motion that might be put forward for deferment. And I think probably we've reached that point where if a motion was put forward, we could potentially move to a vote on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I would concur with that. So, somebody like to move it, please.
So thank you very much. I mean, I would very much have liked to have refuse this application because I'm really convinced that even with deferral and change, for example, to speed limits and sightlines, that this is going to satisfy members that it's safe. However, I'm mindful that it is really difficult to refuse, and there's a risk that we refuse, it's turned over and then all is lost. So with that in mind, I would propose that we defer this for further investigation of the safety aspects of this with West Sussex highways. I don't think that's appropriate wording, or whether you could advise something better. Whether we should actually outline our concerns at this stage, because we could provide a very long list of them, but I don't know whether that's appropriate.
I think officers have been making notes as we've gone along, so I feel we've got sufficient information, so we can also listen to the recording if we need any further clarification. Obviously, if you feel there's anything that's not been covered in the debate that you're seeking, then I would suggest it would be important to raise that now in terms of private matters. But I think we made a note of the various comments that members have made today. Thank you. I'll have to second that.
Okay, so we're moving that motion, please. And the seconder, Councillor Vickers. All those in favour?
So 18 votes in favour.
Anyone against?
And one vote against.
One against. Any? Sorry, abstention. Cool, okay, well, that's time for deferral. Thank you very much, everybody, for down the back there. Keeping a lid on it. There is no other business. Councillors, members, meeting is closed at 19:52.